everybody. I'm Fran Hutson. I'm one of the members of the LPA, which is the Lab Products Association, and I work for a company called MilliporeSigma, which is a life science subsidiary of Merck KGaA based out of Germany. And today I'm going to be the moderator for this session that we think is going to be really good for you to hear about. Awesome industry leaders that I have that are also members of the LPA. We have a few things in common. That is one of them, that we're LPA members together. And secondly, we're all serving science in some way, shape, or form, and we likely all came about this in a different way. So before we get any farther, let these guys introduce themselves and who they work for, and in general what they do. So Josh, you want to go first?
Thank you, Fran. Yes, I'm Josh Camp. I am the head of what we call Lab Medical and Dental for Miele Professional. Miele is a global organization based out of Germany, and happy to represent U.S. commercial sales. Been with Miele for just a few years now, but have spent the last 25 years within the industry.
Great.
Perfect. Hi everyone, I'm Jonathan Yoppi. I work for a company called Avantor, and sort of our tagline is we set science in motion to create a better world, and that's part of the reason why I've been in this industry for nearly all my professional career, so almost 20 years now. And I lead our global consumable business, so essentially stuff without a plug and stuff that's solid that we use in the lab, from plasticware to tissue culture, plastics, glassware, and liquid handling products.
Awesome. I'm Mark Spatz. I'm owner and president of Sterlitech Corporation. We're based in Seattle, Washington. I started the company over 20 years ago, so 2001, so about 22 years ago. And we focus in the filtration business, primarily all filters, filter products, really stayed focused in that area. Yeah.
Well, I think we've got a diversity of who we are and the companies that we serve, but the main commonality is that we are advancing science together. And so the stories on our journeys, I think, are very different. And maybe I'll just say that the MilliporeSigma experience for me, I've been here for 35 years and had been in commercial roles, but right out of med tech school, I went into research and did a lot of academic things. I have a couple publications, so I was one of those science nerds, and I still am, by the way. And started selling for this company as a sales rep, and then fast forward through many commercial opportunities in managing the US, managing global pieces of business, and recently even took a change out of commercial into what some people would call HR, a diversity, equity, inclusion type of role. So there were a lot of things that triggered in me along the way, but before we would go there, let's hear some of your stories. I mean, like, we have the diversity of a founder and president of a company. Maybe, Mark, you can start there.
Yeah, sure. I went to college in Rhode Island, the University of Rhode Island, and I came out with a master's degree in fisheries economics. So I thought I was going to be like in the fisheries world. I worked in aquaculture for a little while. I did a couple other things, and then I moved to Seattle about 26 years ago, worked at a marketing consulting company there as well. So I've done a few different things before I got in the lab products industry. And then previous to this, the other job I had was as a business analyst for an internet company. So I originally thought, I started this business thinking it was consumable products, and I would be able to basically run it without salespeople. That's not quite the way it worked out in the long run, but it's like that's what I wanted to do, is really run this as an e-commerce business, starting in 2001. So yeah, my background's been a little varied on that side. We were very small initially. We're still small, we're under 50. We're about 50, 55 people total. We do some manufacturing and distribution as well.
And how did you ever decide you wanted to be a founder and president of a company?
I always wanted to have a product company. So I did some of the consulting land for a little while, and I really didn't like that world, always having to sell my services all the time. So I've always wanted to be running a product company. So when the opportunity came around, I was very small. It was like a couple $100,000 business at the time. So I bought one single product line, and then quickly realized that I needed to expand that to make it interesting after a while. So I had sort of stumbled into it. That's how I came into it.
And when you stumble across something, what does that look like?
A family friend had been talking to my dad about it, and he was visiting, and he said, I know this, this was like 20 years ago when internet companies were kind of like doing okay, but then we saw the end, like you could see the end basically at the time. So I was like, okay, well, I want to do something else. And so he's like, well, this opportunity I heard about came around. If you want to help, I can help fund the start of it, and I can be part owner if you want to run it. So we moved to Seattle and started running it.
Oh, what a great story.
Yeah.
And so, Josh, what about your journey? How did you end up getting into the sciences here, or the business side?
So, full transparency, I was the experimental hire. So my background is economics. So I was in the banking finance world and doing some regional marketing for a finance firm, and got a call by a recruiter saying, hey, we have this regional position. Would you be interested? And I said, okay, well, let me kind of listen and hear more about it. And lo and behold, I stumbled into a company that was eventually acquired by Thermo Fisher, and was a large manufacturer of laboratory refrigerators and freezers. And I just fell in love with the people that I met. And I said, how can I not work with this group of people? And still didn't really know much about the industry, but quickly fell in love with it all. And now I've kind of had a little bit of a journey career over the last 25 years, working with a couple different companies, a couple different manufacturers, and on the distribution side. So I've really enjoyed just the industry as a whole and the various opportunities that I've had.
And how have your skills transferred over? So you weren't from science, like I was a scientist and all of that jazz, and you've made a fabulous career in this industry, which is a lab supply market. But talk about that, the transferable skills.
Yeah, really, I'm very competent and comfortable in just traditional business settings. And when I realized that the lab products world and the lab industry is a massive global business, regardless of what the products were, I was able to transition and felt comfortable enough. Now, there were many times I would walk into a lab and have no idea what the principal investigator was working on and what he was talking about. But I could see that the passion, I could see what they were working towards, whether it was new therapies and to me, it was just exciting to learn. And so, that's kind of how I was able to transition and just try and find some relatable components of whatever they were talking about, and put it into real world context.
That's kind of interesting for me, because my confidence going into the industry was I knew the science, and so I could walk in a lab and tell right away would they need my products or would they not, based on what applications and posters were down in the hallway. And that gave me the entree into, how do I think bigger, versus the other way around. Well, Jonathan, you've been with a global company for a long time, and you have an interesting track as well. Maybe not from the lab scientist perspective.
But much like you, so I'm a biologist at heart. I've loved science. I've always loved science. It's been a passion of mine. But I realized pretty quickly after I graduated with my bachelor's of biology, I worked in a pathology lab for about a solid 6 months before I realized that it was so mind-numbingly tedious. I needed something different. I needed more human interaction. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to date myself here. I actually answered a classified ad in a newspaper.
Are you kidding?
Back when my company was in Westchester, PA. I live in southeastern PA. I went to St. Joseph's University for my undergrad. It's like, you know what? I'll give it a try. I've never really experienced the business side of science. I've seen the Fisher rep or the VWR rep come into the lab before when I was in there. It's like, you know what? Let me try something different. So I answered that classified ad, and like all 21, 22-year-olds, I was like, I'll do this for a summer or two, and fast forward, I'm coming up on almost 20 years in the industry now. And one of the parts that I've loved about this industry is that I've grown up in this industry and with this industry. And the industry really enables you to do that, because it's funny that my company competes with your company, and we also supply each other as well. Yeah. So a lot of times the names on the badges of the companies will change, but it's the same folks here. So this is very much like a family industry. And that's hard to say when you work for a large global company. Like, I have 16,000 employees at our company. But when you have 10 years, 10, 20, 30, we celebrate 40 to 45 year anniversaries multiple times a year within our company, because people see a career path, but there's also the human element. It feels like they're in a family type business, even though it's a large global entity. And if I look back at the history of my company, now called Avantor, it started as VWR and JT Baker, both of which are over 100 years old. VWR being founded in the gold rush of California, JT Baker being started by an analytical chemistry professor that wasn't happy with the purity of their solvents. So those two companies have evolved and grown, and then they came together in 2019, and here we are today.
Yeah, there's a variation between us about the companies we work for today as well. I work for MilliporeSigma, which is the life science piece of Merck. 355 years old they are, and a family-run business at that. And so for those that might be listening, they're thinking, oh gosh, you guys are ancient, and how can you work for a company that long? I don't know about this for you, Jonathan, but for me, I've only had a job that lasted more than 2 years twice in the 35 years because of the speed that the industry changes, the mergers, the acquisitions, and just the transformative change that has to happen to stay current with science.
Well, if you think of science as a whole, no one was talking about mRNA-based platforms 5 years ago. Then that came to the forefront with Moderna and BioNTech for the COVID vaccines. Now there's an entire billion-dollar-plus industry based off of what's the next big discovery on the mRNA-based platform. And sort of science is constantly reinventing itself, which keeps it fun and interesting because you have to constantly reinvent yourself. And much like you, I get an itch about every 3 years to do something new. And working for a large global company, that gives me the opportunity to move from project management into supplier pricing, or right now into global portfolio management. And I'm sure I'm going to get the itch to learn something new, but because our customers are always evolving, the market's evolving, it gives me a chance to constantly reinvent what my career is going to look like within my company.
And then when you're at a smaller company, but you basically found it and own it, Mark, you have to do everything, right?
Yes. Yeah, well, over time, I have done everything. I've kind of, at this point, done a little less of everything. There was a period of time during COVID where I started to do everything again. But we continue to try and expand our business and expand who we're looking for employees. I mean, like your story from coming from the biology world and then realizing quickly how, this job might not be for me. I want to be more people-oriented. That's exactly sometimes the type of people we look for, is in that role, because not everybody is built to be in the lab, and especially from a science perspective, you can be in sales or marketing or general research on the outside of the lab.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's fascinating about this industry is that you could really carve and create your own path, and regardless of your formal educational background or experience, and I look at you, I tend to have a few itches here and there, and I've gone the publicly traded corporate route, and then I've transitioned to a small family-owned company. And now I'm with a very large family-owned company, and along that journey, I was able to, given the opportunity to really explore different areas and of a business, not just sales, not just marketing. I was directly involved with product management. I'm involved today with manufacturing and production schedules. So, it really in channel strategy. So. That's what I really have enjoyed about this career, this industry. I felt that there's a lot of opportunities, and as long as you want to pursue those, those opportunities are available.
What about the lifestyle of our roles? Like for me, I love to travel. I live in a small town where if I would not have been in a role like this where I could travel, I probably would have dried up and died, or probably not been married anymore, because I need that. That's the gypsy side of me. I love to travel. So starting, and I know I've been in the industry a while now, but globalization kind of happened in our lifetime, in our career. And I'd say about 20 years ago for me, were the beginning of my global roles.
Yeah.
And once you get the taste of that global culture, it's kind of hard to go back, because maybe the U.S. is becoming more global anyway for the new hires coming out. But for us, for me personally, that has been a huge benefit. I mean, I wouldn't tell my boss this, but I would basically say, you pay my expenses and I'll go do whatever you need me to do, because I just so
Right,
love
yeah.
that type of thinking challenge that it gave me. Is that the same for you guys?
Same for me. That's probably what keeps me doing it, for sure, is that I love the idea of being able to work and communicate with people all around the world, going to trade shows, and two of you guys have companies that are based out of Germany. And then just working and traveling that way has been interesting for me. I mean, we're a small company, but we 25% of our sales are international. So, and then we do quite a bit, we do importing from other countries as well, not just China or Asia, but also a lot of different countries in Europe. So it's been having that kind of broader knowledge of business and communication and working with a diverse group of people is really interesting to me.
I'd say, there are benefits and drawbacks to every part of the career. It seems sexy and attractive to be flying all over the world all the time, but then sort of a week into about a 2 or 3 week trip, I start saying, well, I wonder what my daughter's doing right now, or, I really wish I could help my wife pick up my daughter from school at this point in time too. So I think depending on the phase of your life and what you're interested in, there's ways to explore those areas of interest to both move forward as well as to pause and take a breath for important things in your life. Because you have to remember that your life's going to keep going as well, and you want to have good balance between your home life and progression that way, as well as your career as well. And I've really appreciated that this industry has really been supportive of that, where I can take a breather when I need to, and I can sort of hit the foot on the gas, so to speak, and accelerate when I need to as well. So my daughter's in middle school right now, so I'm trying to travel a little bit less as she gets her feet under her in 6th grade, knowing that that's going to be a roller coaster of emotions in its own way. But also, there are points in time in my career, like right now, where I'm traveling a good bit, and the wonders of technology, FaceTime is a fantastic thing to stay in touch with home while you're traveling a good bit as well.
I wish they had that when my daughter was young. I ended up getting fax machined,
Yeah.
math homework, and then calling and faxing it back. We don't use fax machines anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and certainly just work-life balance is always important, and that kind of was one of the primary factors in making a transition from the publicly traded company to a small private company. At that point in time, I had 3 kids under the age of 5, and and working for the large publicly traded, I was traveling in that role extensively all throughout the U.S. and I wanted to stay in the industry, and because the industry and the networks that you build and the opportunities, whether it's within the same company or within a different company, I was able to transition to a small company that gave me a much better balance on the work life, and was able to be around with a lot of the times with my kids and their activities and things of that nature. So again, just the opportunities within the industry are really unlimited.
Is that why you stay in the industry? I mean, maybe that's another question. Why do we stay in this crazy, fast-paced, moving area?
I mean, for me, and there's 2 things. One, I love the manufacturing. Like I love the aspect of the company I work for builds something, and then compound it. But even more is the products that we're producing or supplying. There's a direct end result. We're supporting research. We're supporting pharmaceutical production. I mean, we're helping in some either direct or indirect way of therapies that are helping a family member or a neighbor or some other loved one. I mean, and so to me, that's why I remain in this industry.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that I know in the academic side of the world where I came from, there's always a mission for your research. You know what the impact is going to go. There was a big transition, at least in the space I was, when you thought about going to industry as a sellout from academia. And I actually managed myself through that, and then spent a lot of time with some of the postdocs that I were working with, and the conversations were like this. You know, you do postdoc after postdoc, which I know why you do it, because I was in the academia side. But hey, there's money to be made over here, and if your research is relevant, it should be commercialized in one of these companies, so that, you know, there is an opportunity to do what you're doing there, potentially in industry as well.
Right.
It's all serving the same answers, but
is.
in different paths.
Yeah.
Look, and we see that every day within the universities now are starting to have their own biotech incubators, right?
Yeah.
To translate the academic science into the start of commercialized science that will ultimately one day, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, become a realized therapy. And sort of when it comes to sort of the why for me, it's really personal on two folds. One would be my father-in-law recently passed away in April of this year, and he passed away unfortunately from progressing and regressing multiple sclerosis, for which there really is no real treatment and no real cure, but that doesn't mean there isn't active research in those areas that is progressing through clinical trials right now. And then personally, I'm a cancer survivor. So I was diagnosed with cancer in 2014, and I wake up every morning now, and I've been clear for almost 10 years, but I wake up every morning and I take a pill made by one of our global pharmaceutical companies that we provide raw materials and ingredients to. And sort of that helps crystallize it for me as one, I hope my daughter never has to go through what I did in having cancer and having the treatments. And also hopefully 5, 10 years down the line, maybe other people with multiple sclerosis can actually have a cure or a treatment for the disease, where unfortunately my father-in-law did not.
Yeah, I think it comes down to all of what you guys are saying. It really does. I feel like we make a difference in people's lives and better the world in different ways every day that we're doing something. That's what keeps me around as well. And I think part of this, so you just mentioned the time horizons. I mean, we're not talking like weeks or days or months. We're talking years that this research takes place. And so there's a lot of I don't know. Then basically, to me, that's what makes the difference for me, to see the progression and know that we can matter in the world.
Yeah, we're making a difference.
Yeah.
So let's talk about my role for just a second. As moderator, I didn't talk about my move from commercial to what I'm doing now, and I want to talk about the diversity, equity, inclusion component of our industry, basically. So I managed commercial teams globally and in North America for years, and just a year and a half ago, I thought, we need to make some changes culturally, and how could we do that better? So a lot of change happened, and I'm now head of the life science part of our business for diversity, equity, inclusion. And when I hear that word diversity, equity, inclusion, I immediately think of, underrepresented minorities, whether that's women, it's nationality, it's generational, whether we don't have enough youth in our organizations, or we have too many old people, whatever that it is. So at our company, we have a very deliberate set of KPIs we're managing to, but it's a big company, and we're working to get that culture changed. What's the status in your companies? Do you have D&I programs? Does HR run those? What does the complexion look like? Any thoughts on that?
Well, we're a small company, so we don't necessarily have KPIs for DEI, but we try and hire whoever's the best person for the role. And recently we've realized, like, we're in Seattle, so I have to compete with like the Meta guys and the Microsoft and the Amazon a little less now than a couple years ago. So we really started to look at some local community colleges to try and bring new employees in, like whether or not it be on the marketing side or running customer service or operations side. So that's been the initiative we've taken on that. And overall, if I look at our business, we're probably trending a little older right now. We could trend a little bit younger, I think. But with 50 people, we probably have 15 different nationalities and all kinds of different people from all different walks of life that exist within our organization. So I feel like we do learn from them all the time. And we try and, like, for instance, for us, we do a monthly all hands meeting, and to bring different people in from different positions to give maybe a 5 or 10 minute discussion about what they're doing has been hugely beneficial, and like trying to build that community within ourselves, because we have remote work as well too. So it's like, how do we get everybody connected together?
It's that sense of belonging, and
Yes.
to me, instead of using diversity, equity, inclusion as a word, it's like, how do you create within your business and your leadership that sense of belonging? Because if you feel like you belong and you're contributing, you're going to give 150%. That's just
Right.
because you're an entrepreneur within, whether it's a small or a large company. And that's the kind of culture I think we all love to work in.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, as far as for my team and, within our business unit, I mean, we try and give everybody as much opportunity and, internally, and try and elevate people, who may not have a traditional background or, career development. I mean, we've brought someone in who actually started out, she was our receptionist out front, and then moved her into more of a customer support role. Now, she's advancing into leading our marketing. She's our marketing associate and learning that new skill. So we really try and create an environment where everybody feels empowered and really gives an opportunity to, learn and work on the strengths that they bring to the table. That's something, managing a team of people. I really embrace having a team really from all diverse backgrounds and cultures, and because everybody can bring value to the table, and then collectively going back to trying keeping everybody together, make sure that whether they're out on the West Coast or, Northeast, or, I'm down in the Southeast, wherever, collectively, we are, a true team. So trying to create that environment there as well.
Coming from a large global company such as yourself, Fran, we have a big focus on it in terms of, well, what does diversity mean in all the different countries and regions of the world we serve? And it means a very different thing to our associates in India than it means to the associates here in North America. And it's really, the common thread is essentially uniting the culture and bringing folks together, right? Instead of focusing on what separates us, focusing on what we want to accomplish together and making everyone feel more comfortable being themselves and showing up as themselves, because then they do better work for you, right? And then you're more productive, and you demonstrate the success of diversity, because sometimes we can get caught in an echo chamber of sort of like-minded thinking and like-minded backgrounds, but all the studies show that diverse input gives you much better decision making that leads to much better business process at the end of the day, and really ultimately results. So it's making people feel comfortable to sort of show up as to who they truly are, and then you'll get more productivity out of that, and that'll lead to happier customers and ultimately more business at the end of the day too.
Well, I think about the customer base too. I mean, like, think about the diversity that exists within all of our
Absolutely.
customer base. It's really amazing.
Yeah, you want to be able to reflect that.
You have to be able to reflect
exactly.
it.
Customers. Yeah, I've been the only woman and the only American on several leadership teams in the past, and felt okay with that, based on the culture that we grew up in, and things have evolved in the last many years.
Absolutely.
With that as well. Sure. What about we probably should talk about closing moments just for our audience. If you had maybe two or three things to say to our audience about just parting thoughts in this whole lab market space. Why should you maybe think about taking a look at an LPA member company, a scientific company in the lab product space, and reaching out and connecting, and why you should do it?
Yeah, I think one, from a career path, I mean, there's opportunity for every type of background. A lot of us are commercial or sales related, but whether it's, finance, whether it's, supply chain or manufacturing associates, things of that nature, it's a wide range of opportunities, within this industry. And quite honestly, I think, as far as for, giving this a thought, it's, the industry in itself is a little more stable, I think. There are a lot of different market segments and markets that we sell into, and you think of the lab, and you may just think of, a pharmaceutical company or a university, but we sell into industrial labs, environmental wastewater treatment facilities, food manufacturing, they all have labs. I mean, one of the coolest experiences I had was sitting in the microbiology lab at Miller Coors, which was directly across from Peter Coors' private tasting room. So, there's a lot of different, market segments.
I've been to the Jack Daniels one in Tennessee. Work related.
But I think, as we look at, global economic conditions and things of that nature, the lab industry really has been the one industry that I have felt that's been able to weather a lot of the, but economic, storms that, we've come across over the last, decades, and, they're inevitable that they'll happen in the future as well. So I think, this industry gives all of us an opportunity to kind of be a little more protected.
One recommendation I'd have is if you're still in undergraduate or graduate school, take a business class, right? That's one of the biggest regrets I had is being a biology major. I never had to take a business class, so I never did. Ultimately, it took me going back after several years in the business world saying, hey, I sort of like this science side of business or the business side of science. Let me go get my MBA. And I took my first business school class when I was 28 years old, when I went back to get my Master's of Business Administration. So I'd say, if you're interested in it, or even think you might be, take a class in undergrad or graduate school to just see if the business side of science might be appealing to you.
And it might be a plug to say that a lot of our companies will pay for continuing education
absolutely.
in many different areas.
That was one of the
MBA
perks that we didn't get to is my company paid for a little over 90%, and the only reason it wasn't 100% is I got sort of a little bit anxious to get done after going back to school, so I wanted to accelerate it a little bit to get done in 3 years instead of 4 at that point.
Got it.
Yeah, I would say science is not scary. That's one thing that we run across all the time is that people are afraid of going into the industry because they don't know it. They don't really know who the customers are going to be like. They're afraid they don't know they don't have the knowledge base. As somebody who came in not knowing anything, I still don't know a whole lot, but like we mentioned this earlier, but everybody is very friendly and warm within the industry. Yeah. It's not going to be a problem, but it's a world where you can really make a difference. If you want making a difference as a day in and day out, and with the company you're working with whether or not, like you guys were talking about with food and beverage, that side of it, or healthcare or any other location, there is a lot of ways that you can make a difference in the world. So, and I think you're also right on the other point I was going to bring up. I do like I forget sometimes that it's relatively stable. Yeah. So we don't get as affected by some of the economic conditions that some other people have.
Yeah, science. There's a need to have science progressing, and no matter what. So for me, the science is a love. I love science. I learned to love the business side because, like you, Jonathan, I was a manager before I even knew what a manager did, before I started doing global business management. And then the development of people. I mean, to me, that became a third leg for me, which I didn't know I loved, and was some innate skills that were hidden maybe in my own perception of where I was, which I've turned totally into the end of my career likely as I move forward. Well, I think that we have probably displayed a pretty diverse journey for the four of us, with the commonality again being that we're all LPA members in the lab products market. I've learned a lot more about each of you, so I'm privileged and thankful for that.
Likewise.
And hopefully the goal of this was accomplished where our audience will say, hey, there's some interesting aha moments that they might not have thought of, that they can take a look at our companies and other companies in the association and think about knocking on those doors in the future.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing it.
Thank you.